I always knew that databases are developer tools. And keep that thing in mind when Paolo and Thomas start. Paolo, who used to be a database team leader, Thomas Baumann, who is a performance specialist, plus a change manager, plus a database visa. He knows many things, but the most important thing is change and the people. Thomas and Paolo will introduce you into the notion of change from a totally different perspective than you might think. So stage is yours, Paolo and Thomas.
Okay, thank you very much, Thomas. So I will start sharing my screen. And I think it's this one. Okay. So we had planned originally to have the presentation in German, and but I've seen that there are a couple of people who are English native speakers in the attendee list, so we will switch to English. I'm very happy today that I can talk about with Thomas Baumann about the future of the DBA. As you know, we both were former DBAs, and I'm also very proud to talk with Thomas because he's one of the he's a very famous speaker. He is in the Hall of Fame of the DB2 user group, and he was mentioned many times as best speaker in the DB2 user group, and he was the guy who hired me in my experience in Mobiliar. So it's always a pleasure to have a talk with him together. Trying to click. Okay, here once again our sponsors and the safe harbor statement. So who am I? I am Paolo Kreth. I'm a cloud architect at Oracle. I joined back Oracle 1 year ago after almost 10 years at Swiss Mobiliar. I have 2 children, Mikkel and Noah, 14 and 9, and my hobbies are music, FC Genoa, and the Swiss Oracle User Group. To you, Thomas.
Okay, thank you, Paolo. My name is Thomas Baumann. I work, as Paolo already mentioned, for Swiss Mobiliar, the most personal insurance company in Switzerland. I'm in the IT architecture department and responsible for data architecture at Swiss Mobiliar. I'm a couple of years older than Paolo. I also have 2 children, which are also a couple of years older than Paolo's, but nevertheless, we have kind of some of the same hobbies: skiing, hiking, reading, and as we can't leave Switzerland any longer, all the hobbies have to be performed in Switzerland. So then, let's get started. First of all, as a little motivation, a couple of years ago, I attended a session in the United States where I was confronted with this book, My Job Went to India. And I thought for a DBA, it's probably the same thing. Maybe you were hired a couple of years ago as a DBA in your company doing image copies, securing Oracle objects, or reorganizing databases, accelerating SQL queries, etc. But now it's time for Paolo to turn on the screen. Yes, maybe this job doesn't longer exist. The company that you work for has changed. Your responsibilities have changed. You might still get the paycheck at the end of the month. But if you really think of your company, do you really give additional enhanced value to your company while still doing just reorgs, backups, and accelerating queries? Or could your job be translated or goes to India, like the one in this book, or being transferred to the clouds or automated by the autonomous database options? So if you're still doing the same business as you were hired for a couple of years ago, you will probably be at risk. And this afternoon's talk will be about how to change your job responsibilities, in which direction you could go to be able to still add additional value to your company. And we'll talk about 3 different ways where you can go to. But first of all, we have prepared some polling questions. Unfortunately, some of them are in German, and also the answers that you can give to the questions are in German. But I think most of you will understand enough German to be able to answer the questions. First one is, however, in English. And it's the question about what did you do as your main job task over the last few years? So I hand back to Paolo to start the polling quiz.
Okay, so I think we will wait another couple of seconds that people will join. So they are still joining. And the code once again is 005823. We fortunately have to wait because after that we've started, we will not be able to join anymore. Okay, so we see there are quite a lot of people that joined, and I will start with the quiz now. Oh, I see still people are joining. Okay, I think I will start now. So this is the first question. It should appear. I hope it appears. Okay, so it's starting now. Thomas, what do you think about the results?
Okay. Yes, we can see a clear trend that most of the people answered performance is the most important thing they cared about over the past years. And we have availability with some points and only one single answer that said create value, additional value from your Oracle data was his or her preferred action over the last few years. Now in the years to come, availability will become less important as we all move to autonomous databases and to the cloud. High performance will still be very important, but a bit less important than it has been before. Some jobs will be, some tasks will move away from the DBA's daily job, but create value from your Oracle data. That will be one of the center activities in the future. Okay. Next question. Next slide.
Okay, so it's my turn. And as I said, we will also show some music in this presentation. And the first question that we want to talk about future, but we should have a look back before we talk about the future. So the new morning relies on the past day. And in my opinion, here I've seen quite a lot of marketing slides that were telling what were the best features of Oracle in the last years. But I tried to find out what really changed our job. And I think the first important thing is the software installation without a CD-ROM. When I began, we had to go to the server, put in the CD-ROM, and then we had to start the installation. So quite difficult. And now today, we do not need it anymore. The next big change was the cost-based optimizer. So when the cost-based optimizer was launched, we found out that we didn't have to care anymore about rules for executing our query and have a look at how the data is distributed. And the next big thing was the automatic segment space management and locally managed table spaces. From one day to the other, we didn't have any more to calculate the space for tables and think in the future, how can this stuff grow, because we had auto extend per default and no more table space fragmentation and no more coalescing of table spaces. So we see that our life became easier and easier. And with the demid stats and automatic statistic gathering, we didn't have to care anymore about statistics. The system does it for itself. This P file was a big change because we didn't have to care anymore where the P file was, where we started the last time the instance. And also we can change some parameter at runtime. That was not possible before, or just very few parameters. Another big change were the undo table spaces. No more rollback segments, no more snapshot to old errors. Flashback database, no need to restore the database if you have a problem, but just flashback to a point in time, very fast. And the recycle bin. Imagine Friday afternoon, a phone call. Oh, I dropped my table. Okay, let's start with a restore and then put out the table, transfer the table in the database. No, just put it out from the recycle bin. Also on the volume management with automatic storage management, it's quite easier. Multi-tenancy is the next big thing. Manage many databases as one. Do an upgrade of hundreds of databases in one step. This is something that happens. Just have a look at the Mobiliar blog to see more of it. Exadata. So you see in the whole bunch of automatization in Exadata. So you see more and more additive SQL plan management, and we can go on. So our job became easier and easier. But due to the automation, it will change in future. So in my opinion, there are some generic tasks that you're doing today. Please remember this slide because we will see it once again later. So some generic tasks with database provisioning, database backups, database optimization, configuration and tuning. These are most of the tasks that we are doing today. And as you've seen in the question from Thomas, you've seen that almost everybody is doing something here mainly, but we are moving more and more nearer to the business with architecture, planning and data modeling, data security, application tuning, and end-to-end service level management. So there is a change, in my opinion. We will see what's the experience of Swiss Mobiliar in this way. What does it mean? It means that probably we will have to break free, like Queen says. So the next song in the background. You see, we are coming from this big path here. So our road is big. We know exactly where we're going to. And now we come and we have three different ways. And it seems like it's getting a little bit smaller, the three possibilities. You have the possibility to change to service management. Go in the management and see what happens with costs. You will have to deal with quite a lot of Excel files maybe, and with the numbers. This is one possibility, and I think that in many companies, the DBAs go this path. There is also the second opportunity. The second opportunity is given by DevOps and by cloud. So the new technologies are changing the way people are working today, and we will see what impact it has. And the third possibility is create value from your data. Data DBAs are very, very near to data, and we should get even more near to data. This will be the presentation we'll talk about, and I will hand over back to Thomas.
Okay, thank you, Paolo. The next question is about how is your mindset today? In a few seconds, I will show you a picture on this slide. It's not a polling question, it's just a question to ask for yourself or to answer to yourself. What do you see in this picture? Okay, a few seconds time for you. Maybe you see sand. If you see sand, then you're probably still in the world of backup and in the world of backup recovery, create index, unload, load, increase performance. If you look at the same picture and you think, I have seen gold, then you're in the good way. Then you're up to thinking about exploring data, detecting outliers or anomalies, visualizing trends, correlate data, etc. It's the very same picture. It's your data in there. You can do different things with that data. Copying, recovering it, making access a little bit faster, or exploring the value of the data at your hand. And we're talking about how to explore the data. What's the next steps for you if you want to improve your knowledge in these areas? So today's DBA's tasks, or let's say tomorrow's DBA's tasks, are basically working together with data scientists. And in order to be able to do that, you should have a basic understanding of machine learning processes, of statistics functions, etc. Because a couple of years ago, you were a sleeping, hibernating bear. You were confronted with simple SQL statements, and the bear you will see down here was still sleeping. That's the DBA. The next step of the DBA is waking up and doing a little bit more with still the same data, still within your SQL world, min, max, percentile, correlation, roll-up or cube, some enhanced functions. So the bear has woken up. But in order to be a really agile, dangerous animal, as your DBA should be, you should go to the next step. Become familiar with decision trees, k-means, naive Bayes, etc. With all those algorithms. You don't have to become an in-depth expert among these, but you should be able to talk about them with data scientists, such that you can look at yourself as the bear in this next picture up here. That's where you want to go to. So let's talk a little bit more in detail about machine learning algorithms. Tomorrow's DBA's tasks are supporting, enhancing, simplifying the life of the data scientists. And for this, you should have a basic understanding of machine learning algorithms as it is shown in this diagram here. I won't talk about that in detail. The most important thing here is the reference on the bottom left side where I had this picture from. But you should know what is supervised learning in contrary to unsupervised learning. Just in short, in supervised learning, you have a learning objective and to train your algorithms to classify or to do some regression to predict a certain number or a certain category where your data belongs to. Unsupervised learning is more of the kind of data exploration, finding clusters of data which are belong more together than others, etc. If you look at this slide, there's one single error on it. Yes, you're right. It's not tomorrow's DBA, it's today's DBA's tasks. And if you look a little bit closer at all these algorithms, all the data, all projects which are talking about development of a data-driven product, all these projects have certain phases. They start with data exploration, then feature evaluation, extraction, modeling, classification, etc., and evaluation. So from all these phases, the first two phases are where today's DBA should be active and become more and more involved with. On the left, on the right side, you see the tasks for typical data scientists. But if you don't move from your SQL-centric world on the very left. If you don't move a little bit more on the right side, it will be the data scientists who will take over exploration and feature extraction from you. So if you can, in your company, advance a little bit more to the right, you will be sure that you add additional value to your company.
Okay, and how does the Oracle database help you in this way? Well, it's very simple. Normally, the data exploration part is the part that takes most of the time of all the process, because you have to find correlation between the data, you have to find how the data matches together, and you have to do quite a lot of analytics on the data itself. The normal approach is to extract the data from where it resides. Maybe it's just in a database. So extract it, put it somewhere, maybe a data lake or something like that, and then start hacking with the data with some, maybe some R libraries like pandas or something like that, Python, pandas is Python libraries, and to start hacking. And so this process takes quite a lot of time. And the Oracle approach is quite different. They say, please do not move the data, move the algorithm, because it's much more simpler. So the Oracle database has quite a lot of APIs which you can use to interact directly with the data and to start the data exploration directly in the database. No need to move. You can do it later if you want to aggregate other data. But at the beginning, you can start directly with the database. You just need an account. And the interesting thing is that all of this algorithm that were shown by Thomas, they are already in the Oracle database and they are for free. So you can, anytime you can start hacking, you can start doing analysis on your data and then find out which correlation you have and decide how to build your models on it. Thomas?
Okay. Well, machine learning is not the only option to create more value from your data. Machine learning will become more and more important. It will take over work that you did right now. Remember Paolo's cost-based optimizer. In the beginning, it was a rule-based optimizer. Then it changed to become a code-based optimizer. And now with machine learning, it will be again a rule-based optimizer in the near future. But the difference is the rules are not written or programmed explicitly. They are calculated, created by algorithms. But besides these machine learning things, there are a lot more options and possibilities to create more value from your data. What we'll do now is a little bit leaving the theory so far and going into 4 practical use cases. We have 4 different areas to create more value from data. For each of them, I will show you 1 or 2 slides with some examples, and then we have a polling question regarding this area, data strategy and culture, for example, where you can ask yourself, do I work for the right company? Is my company willing to let me create more value from data? Or are we already at the leading edge? We already create a lot of value, etc. It will be very interesting to see where you are compared to your peers. You don't have a very large audience here, but we still have some 20 participants in these polling questions. So let's start with data, strategy, and culture. The first example I show you here is this Mobiliar dashboard. But the numbers are artificial, they are close to reality, but not really representing the reality. What I will show you here is just, we have prepared in our newsroom, we have a very large screen where very important daily news are presented all the time. For example, the current weather, etc. And we also added some IT content into it. It's a mixture of IT and business relevant KPIs. So in near real time, a couple of seconds delayed, we show how the business is going on today. At the beginning, controlling people didn't really like this because they were used to produce weekly or monthly reports, etc. They were not used to see data in near real time. And they were used to present results from their own perspective. So as a DBA, I produced this dashboard here calculating near real-time numbers of KPIs. And from one day to the other, the DBA department was very much more visible in the company than it was before. Because the first thing in the morning the CEO looks at, and the last thing in the evening when the CEO leaves his office, is a quick look at these numbers.
So how many times per day is this dashboard refreshed? 2, 3 times a day?
It will be refreshed every 5 to 10 seconds, not in this presentation, but in real time. There's another picture in this newsroom, which is more kind of it's not very important or interesting on its own, but it shows the switch from our traditional salesperson-based approach to sell insurance products into digital, into becoming a digitalized company, having products available online. How many insurance premiums were calculated within Switzerland over the last 60 seconds? From which sources and from which products is shown here. And these are just 2 examples to make the people, the whole company more data aware, to enhance data culture in the direction of, oh, our data is quite important. And for this, I have a first polling question for you. So we go back to our quizzes, and Paolo will start.
Let
the
me
next
start
question.
the next question.
They're in German, but I'm sure you understand. Okay, I'm happy to see that no one used the 2 columns on the left-hand side, because still in that area, your company is highly at risk to disappear within the next few years, and you should look for another company, frankly. If you're in the middle, you're still at the, or let's say, the more to the right, the more you are at the leading edge regarding the importance of data within your company. If you're in the center with the most answers, there is still time to do something, but you should move on to become more data aware in your company. Maybe you can do something as DBA, maybe not. But that's the state of your data perception within your company. Okay, let's go back to the presentation, to the second example. We'll talk about data maturity. How good are your data? And good means what data, what quality do they have? And not just quality like all my mail addresses are and have been entered in the correct format, or all my birthdays are between 1st January and 31 December. Data maturity also means, is the data really complete? Do we have all the data necessary? In this example, we have a business dashboard that shows the number of customer relationships for each customer which touched the contract over the last 10 days. So the blue line here represents the agency of Schwyz, and the red line is the average in Switzerland. And we see that Schwyz is much more present, much more active adding additional customer relationships between customers than the average is in Switzerland. And dashboards like these help to understand how mature is our data. Can I rely on these data to make my analytics? And here's the next question for you.
So let's start again.
Okay, once again, from the left to the right, there is increasing quality and accuracy of data. It is still on the far left. Maybe you have to trigger some actions to have data in better quality, in more completeness, simpler to access for data scientists, etc. Most of you are in the third of four areas that Versus Familiar also is. We have dashboards available, but not everyone is looking at them all the time. But data is available where we can check the quality of our data. Okay. The third example, time to market, or time to action in our case. What's the time delay between an insight delivered in a dashboard? I will just comment what insights we can see here. What's the time between insights delivered and an action which is taken out of it? This is a SQL performance slide, which once again in near real time, a couple of seconds delayed, shows on the diagram on the top how many queries were executed in blue and how long did an average query take in elapsed time in this red. It is a yellow or brown or whatever it is line. On the bottom diagram, we can see how the elapsed time is composed. The red part is CPU time, the green part is disk I/O access. There are some locking, etc. times additionally. So if you look a little bit closer at this frame that Paolo just entered, in this time frame from about 6 in the morning until 6 in the evening, we have automated outlier detection and anomaly detection. So if you look a little bit more exact at this picture, you can see, do you see any outliers? Maybe the number of queries on the diagram above between 12 and 1. That's not an outlier, that's every day's typical behavior. Also, the little decrease in number of queries executed in the morning coffee break. Not as much as during lunchtime. But if you look a little bit closer on the bottom diagram, there you can see an outlier in CPU consumption. So this monitoring tool detected an outlier, reported it to the responsible teams, where DBAs and developers work together in an agile development, and they see this alert, they correct it, and they put the correction into production. And therefore, the next question. It's not limited, this question, to business, to IT questions. It can also be business questions, of course. Okay, I'm a bit surprised to see 5 answers which say our insights are always automatically translated into actions. I don't really believe that you can do that for most of your insights which are delivered. Or these insights always are repetitive insights and not new ones. The typical answer here is somewhere from the left to the right. If you're still far left, then maybe you should invest into things like automation. Maybe if you work more in agile environments, you will automatically move from the far left at least to one of the 2 columns in the center. But typically here, most answers are in the second or in the third column, as you answered here. There's a surprising amount of 5 answers on the far right. Then we move to the last question. Before we go to the question, back to the slide. The next question is about data architecture. How can you find your relevant data? Do you have data scientists that always call a DBA or another knowingful person where your data is? Or do you have something like an enterprise data catalog? We have implemented that with a graph database, but there are other options available, of course, such as Oracle Graph, for example. Do you have something in place like this data catalog? That's the next question. Okay, fairly interesting distribution, 3 equivalent values and 1 exotic answer on the right, with an interactive data catalog which is permanently used and automated on a daily basis. That's really it's not best practice, it's not even state of the art, it's even beyond state of the art. Best practice, I would think, is somewhere there's a data catalog available which is used, but the usage could be enhanced and made available to broader audiences. For the 6 answers on the left, I'm looking for a knowingful person. If this knowingful person is you, then it's a good thing. Then you can enhance your value within your company. But if this knowingful person is somewhere else, sits in a different department than in the DBA department, then you have missed your chance to become that person. Okay, let's go back to the slides and I guess back to Paolo.
Yes, thank you. And time for the next one. Because now we will talk a little bit about cloud. And the question here is, should we have fear of the cloud? So the song here are Iron Maiden, Fear of the Dark, but the cloud maybe becomes dark. And the main question here is, what happens if my company goes to the cloud? And what would it mean for me? Will I find Eddie, the mascot of the Iron Maiden there, who wants to kill me? Or is it just another opportunity? And if you hear the music changes. It becomes quite a little bit more happy, a little bit more quiet, because, in my opinion, from the cloud you can see the sun. So it's a very big opportunity for you and for your company to move into the cloud. I've taken here, in my opinion, some words about why a company should consider moving to the cloud. there are quite a lot of things. There are the flexibility, and for example, if you want to move an Oracle workload, then probably our cloud is the best place to put it in. Our cloud, we started a little bit later, but this gave us the opportunity to to design the cloud with security in every layer. Gen 1 clouds are normally more designed for optimizing the workload and the hardware resources. As we said from the beginning, security is an option. Maybe you have a customer strategy that says cloud only, or you have, for example, a multi-cloud idea, and we can do it with the Azure Interconnect, or for example, with a partnership with VMware. But the very important thing at the end are the costs. And this is really part of the job that I'm doing in the last months. I'm just doing things like that. I'm calculating business case for moving to the cloud. This is an example. These are numbers that I've put together. It's similar to some of the cases that we have seen, but it's with the dummy numbers. And here you see what you can calculate. You can say, okay, what happens if I stay like I am? So my costs will rise. Maybe here I have a hardware refresh and then my costs will grow. Or what happens if I move to the cloud? And here are two different scenarios for moving to the cloud. And you will see that at year 4 and 5, your costs will decrease. This is a possibility, and we can calculate it for you. So this is a service that you normally get for free if you are interested in. We have two different license models. One is gives you the maximum flexibility, where you can reduce your support costs and pay for what you're really using. Or maybe you have some very good license, you have a ULA that you with a high discount, and then you can protect your investment. And you see that here the business case is just talking about reducing your on-premise infrastructure and reducing a part of your labor. These are the different possibilities. So customers, what I see is they're interested in exploring it. And what would happen to our job? Well, we will have to get some new skills, cloud native skills. Maybe we will manage the database in the cloud, and we will have to grow with some more security skills. And here, if you look at SAFE, where are we today? Today, we are here, shared services. So we are a service that can be shared to all of the different groups. But if you still look here at the SAFE paradigm, they say specialty, but they cannot dedicate it full time. And often we are quite busy and people have to engage us. So this is, I think, the main point. If we do not have time, we will not be engaged. And more, we will have to move towards people if we want to talk with them, because we have so many things that we can tell about. For example, the whole organization of data. Maybe your company needs different data types and starts thinking about different data stores for it. That's not necessary. The Oracle database, you have almost everything, and everything's for free. You have JSON, you have graph, you have spatial, you have all of the different data types that you can need. Just start the discussion. Do we really need to introduce a new database system? Look for new people, look for SLRs and people who can administer it? Or can we do it with what we already have? And this here is a place where the discussion should be, the communities of practice. Have a look at the SAFe paradigm and see if it could be a practical way. I had the opportunity to do it in my former company when I was at Mobilia, and it was fantastic to talk with developers and exchange about different needs and different solutions. Thomas.
Yes, before closing, just 3 examples of how DBAs did evolve over the past 2 or 3 years. On the horizontal line, you see the time axis for 3 years. And on the vertical, you see the deep dive DBA, which is typically focused on reorganization and optimization. Then you have analytics skills far in the vertical, or the cloud DBA. Now, Paolo, as we have not so much time, we could quickly click a couple of times until we see all the development career paths. We have 3 different DBAs. The blue one, which started from deep dive, became a data analyst, and now is responsible for service management in the cloud. We have the green one, which entered the company a little bit later, worked a little bit, deep dive in Oracle, and then went to the cloud as an open source database specialist. And you have the red one, which has 2 tasks, still very active, 3rd level support in the deep dive environment, but also frequently talking to data scientists about analytics things. So you should never leave a presentation, which you see on the next slide, without having some concrete steps how to perform and how to go on further. First, you already know your data, now you should add the business perspective to that. Second, you should become familiar with analytics and machine learning and applied statistics, and you should not only become familiar or achieve know-how, you should even become an expert in doing so. And the 3rd point is become familiar with cloud, agile development, and open source database. So if you look at the open positions at Swiss Mobiliar, we can clearly see we don't look for traditional DBAs any longer. One example is a database specialist with open source focus. Another one is a business intelligence specialist, or a 3rd example is a developer with Kafka know-how. These are all things that DBAs formerly were also covering a little bit. But now it's the future of DBA is clearly in these areas presented here.
And if you look, also my team is hiring. And what is he hiring? He's hiring a business intelligence specialist. So almost everywhere, the skills that we are looking for change. So that's the end of this presentation. We came to the end.
I think we have one more question in the polling area.
Yes, so it's the last question, because this is the most important question of all.
Okay, Paolo, start the sound.
Yes, I'll try. So it's starting now. Okay, are there any questions? Because we came at the end. If you have any question, then raise your hand. And I think that Clemens gave you the microphone.
Thank you very much. I actually do not see a raised hand or a question in the Q&A. Let me see. No, Q&A is empty. And also no raised hands. So it seems everybody is happy with what you've provided. No questions. Again, thank you very much. And I just quickly give over to Thomas.
Yeah, thanks, Clarence. Thanks, Thomas and Paolo. I think this has shown several of the pathways of DBAs. And if you just think of it, this is happening everywhere in IT these days. So a certain job role changes and evolves. And it doesn't mean it's not any important anymore, but it simply seems to be a solid ground for next steps. So my question to you, Paolo and Thomas, if you were starting again in your career, which path would you go of those ones shown in the second last slides?
Thomas, what do you think?
So when I was studying computer sciences with probability theory and applied statistics. So at these days it was very exotic combination. Now it's just simply called big data. But when I would enter a company, probably I would start as a data scientist and move on further to the left on that slide I showed you, from going from data exploration to creating value from your data. I would start as a data scientist and move on to embrace more and more DBA jobs.
Okay, thanks.
Paolo?
Very interesting. Paolo?
Yes, in my opinion, it's similar. I think that the two main interesting part here are the getting value from your data. So we are, I think that every DBA, when he starts, then he tries to get and understand what's happening behind the lines. And this is the way it will be in future. Also, cloud is very interesting. I think cloud is in this morning is such an opportunity. This moment is such an opportunity, but it will be normal in a couple of years. So if I should choose, I would go also to the data scientist.
Okay, so 2 new data scientists, if they would be reborn, that's interesting to see. If there is no other questions, we will close the session. So raise your hand if you'd like to.
Thank you very much. I'm stopping recording, Thomas. And I would like to ask Stefan early, because we have 2 Stefans here, to raise his hand so that I can put him into the panelist list. Thank you.